In this video, we will install LaTeX, LyX, and Quarto on Fedora Workstation 40, which is a Linux distribution operating system. Let's install LaTeX, which is the TextLive distribution on Linux operating systems. On the Fedora Linux distribution, we use dnf install to add packages, and there are 3 recommended TextLive packages. I usually install the medium version and then add individual packages when I need to. If you are interested in what is inside each one of these 3 packages, you can go to Fedora packages, fedoraproject.org, view index, basically find TextLive, scheme, basic, medium, and full. So let's do that now. That's basic, medium, and full. Let's check out medium. I'm on Fedora 40, so I click on this one, and you can see the dependencies. So what will be installed if you install this package, this scheme medium package. You'll see that the fonts recommended and LaTeX recommended will be installed. For Ubuntu, there are 5 options, and usually I would go with just a simple TextLive. You can find out what TextLive is by going to packages.ubuntu, search for TextLive. If you're on Ubuntu 24.04, that's the one you click. TextLive contains fonts recommended, LaTeX base, and LaTeX recommended. Go to the terminal and type in command for installing TextLive scheme medium. The medium one takes about 1 gig to download and 1.8 gigabytes once installed. Now we install LyX. Let's run LyX. We'll generate a preference file by changing a setting. For example, do italics to be Control E, and then we'll change it back. Press remove. Now we'll go to the home folder and the hidden folder LyX. We'll launch the file explorer and we'll look for the preference file. Yes, it's generated. So by changing this the setting just now, we generated this file. I like this repository by Junro. It has several different themes for LyX. What you have to do is replace the color section of the preferences file. So what you do is you open up the WinDark, go to raw, and you copy and paste this color section. The preference file, open it up, and look for color section. Replace that. Now we start LyX. Now notice that this is not in dark mode. What could be happening is if you go to GNOME tweaks, now if you go there, you have to go into legacy applications and set this one to a dark mode. Let's say Yaru dark. Now if you start a new document, that's also in dark mode. Let's just say that's also good. You do Control scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And in order to see the LaTeX of what you have here so far, go to View, Code Preview Pan, and it will be over here. Before we install Quarto, we need to install R, Julia, Python, and Jupyter Lab. If you need help with installing these software, please check out my previous video, which are linked in the description below. On Fedora, you can install R by doing sudo dnf install R. After you have installed R, launch R and install two packages, the R Markdown package and the language server package. Quarto works with R through the knitr engine. However, Quarto works with Python and Julia through Jupyter kernels. Jupyter Notebook and Jupyter Lab works by using something called a language kernel for each version of Julia or Python that the user wants to work with. Let's install the Julia kernel for Jupyter, which is called IJulia. Jupyter itself requires a Python installation, so there are two ways to associate a Julia kernel for Jupyter. The first approach is to activate an existing Python environment that Jupyter has installed. Install IJulia, then connect IJulia with that activated Python environment. You can read more about how to do that here. The second approach is to ask IJulia to set up a dedicated Python environment with Jupyter installed for Julia. In this video, we will use the second approach. I do not recommend installing IJulia in a global Julia virtual environment. As a general rule, you should not put too many packages in the global environment. This will help you reduce dependency-related issues. Within the Julia software development community, a Julia virtual environment is called a Julia project. For my workflow, I use a separate Julia environment for different Julia or Quarto document projects. For example, if the Quarto project folder is located in this Quarto tutorial folder, then I launch Julia in this folder, do this creates a Julia environment for this folder if one doesn't already exist. To install IJulia, since we're taking this second approach to have a private Python distribution for Julia, you should have to copy this part and run it. A Jupyter Notebook server. And you can shut it down. We now know that it works. Exit Julia. To install Quarto, go to Get Started and download the Linux tarball. After you have done so, extract the contents of the tarball into a folder called Quarto. On my machine, I put it in my home folder in the Programs folder. Now we have to create a symbolic link to this Quarto binary. This is the command I use to create a symbolic link from the Quarto binary to my USR local bin folder. From a previous video, we made an alias and a Python environment that has Jupyter installed. Now we can check Quarto to see if it is installed properly and if it detects these Jupyter kernels. We see that Quarto was able to detect LaTeX. Quarto detects Jupyter with the kernels for the language Python 3 and Julia 1.10. If you have a new version of Julia, then you have to reinstall IJulia. Quarto also detects R, and it uses a knitr engine. If you have check marks for all these boxes, then Quarto was successfully installed for your system. You can see that on my machine, Chromium browser was not installed and TinyText was not installed, so I cannot use those machinery to render my Quarto files. The DataSci Python environment has Jupyter Lab installed. If we deactivate this environment and then do Quarto check, we will not be able to find Jupyter. So this is why you should always activate a Python environment that has Jupyter installed. For me, it's DataSci, which we covered in a previous tutorial. I have the link to that video in the description.